Hi everyone, and welcome to this video where we look at another one of my classic computer models. And today we're going to have a look at an iconic home computer of the 1980s. This is the Commodore 64. Now Commodore got into microcomputing in 1977 with the Commodore PET, and they brought out a few models based on the PET. Some of the later models were targeted at business, but in 1980s Commodore bought out a machine for the newly emerging home computer market. This was the VIC-20. That sold very well, and in 1982 they followed it up with another machine, the Commodore 64. Now the specifications were impressive. The Commodore 64 had 64 kilobytes of memory, which was a whopping amount of memory those days. It had a good sound synthesizer chip and very, very capable graphics, all at an extremely low price. So let's have a look at it. The Commodore 64's positioning in the marketplace reflected the will of the owner of Commodore Computers, Jack Tramiel. And he had a motto, "Business is war." And he also had a slogan regarding home computers, "Computers for the masses, not the classes." And he wanted to see a Commodore 64 in every living room. To achieve this, not only was the 64 cheap, but Commodore used general retail chain stores rather than specialist computer or electronic outlets. So the computers themselves were sold with toys and other common electrical appliances, and so they were visible everywhere. Also, Commodore had an advantage over many others in the game in that they manufactured their own ICs. Now this vertical integration meant they could produce machines at a very low cost and undercut those who tried to compete with them. The low cost of the machine, when comparing bang for buck, was an important facet in the advertising campaign, as can be seen in this ad. The campaign worked. An aggressive pricing and discounting strategy, combined with market saturation, saw the Commodore 64 win the home computer wars of 1982-1984, forcing many competitors to sink or withdraw from the market altogether. Here you can see my own Commodore 64 set up for display. So what about my own impressions? Actually, at the time they were mixed. I was impressed by the graphics and the sound for the price, but I was disappointed in the bare-bones 8K BASIC, and I also felt the keyboard was quite mushy and hard to type on. However, these are some of the compromises made to keep the price low. Also, by that stage, I was using my Dick Smith System 80 mainly for business purposes rather than games, so I couldn't see much use in something that only showed 40 columns of text. I wasn't particularly envious of those friends who had Commodore 64 because I wasn't in that gaming space at that stage. So a close look at the Commodore 64 shows an attractive enough unit, looking very much like the VIC-20 except in a different livery. Keys were set out the same, with the pesky characters written on the lower part of the keys. Coming around the side we can see two joystick ports, an on-off switch and the power socket. Incidentally, this is the original design of the Commodore 64, the original form factor, what they sometimes call the bread box design, and you can see there that the keys are actually quite high, so you do have to lift your hands up quite a way off the table to type, which isn't that comfortable after a long period. So coming around the back from left to right, we can see the cartridge port, a small fine tuning screw for tuning onto a TV channel, an RF socket, the composite video socket, the serial port socket for adding things like drives and printers, a card edge for the cassette recorder, and the user port for some other accessories. So here's the label for my particular unit, so you can see it's made in the UK, made in England. Here's the power supply. It's a very, very big black brick, but it seems to work okay. Here's the motherboard. You can see from this photo that it's not the first revision. It's one of the later ones. I think it's revision B, but I'm not absolutely sure. It was a motherboard I had to do a little bit of work on because the large 6526 CIA DP chip right in the top corner there became faulty, and I had to cut it out and solder in a socket and put a replacement in there. Here you can see my data set unit. These small devices were designed to load and save computer programs onto cassette tape, and they were more reliable than standard audio recorders that were used on some other computers. I guess because they were designed specifically for the saving and playing of computer programs, unlike many of the others. Next we have the famous 1541 disk drive for the Commodore 64. This disk drive was really big. It had the power supply built in, which was good in a way that it cut down on the spaghetti jungle of cables, but it made the unit really large. It was also quite an intelligent drive in that it had its own microprocessor. It was as large as the Commodore 64 console itself. Here around the back you can see the two DIN sockets there for daisy chaining accessories, like other drives and printers off the drive itself. So that's what a disk-based Commodore 64 setup looks like. Not an unattractive sight for those back in 1983 that were looking at a home computer. Now, to start off a look at the Commodore 64 in action, I thought I'd start with this particular game. This is International Soccer. Comes on a cartridge, and it was one of the first programs to be released for the Commodore 64. When the machine went on the market, this particular game was available, and you used to see it playing a lot in shops to show off the potential of the machine. Now, when you compare it to programs that people developed later for the Commodore 64, it actually looks pretty lame. But to see this program in 1982, it was fairly jaw-dropping. This use of sprites, the animation that you got with it was pretty impressive. So it's a football game, so the idea is that you just you control one of the teams, and you can pass the ball around to different members, kick it around. As I said, people looked at this and were quite impressed that such an inexpensive computer could produce a game of such quality as far as the graphics were concerned. Eventually, of course, there were thousands and thousands of titles available for the Commodore 64, but I want to show you this one. And the reason I want to show you this one is that, one, I used to play it occasionally when I had a Commodore 64, and two, it really is quite iconic of the 1980s. It was an early 1980s film, and it does show off some of the features of the Commodore 64, like the sprites and the sound. So we'll have a look at Ghostbusters. Now, this is a disk-based program, so I'll have to put the disk in and get it to load up. So we'll just place the disk in the disk drive. You can see how big that disk drive is. As I said, practically the same size as the computer. So there we are. We're ready to issue some commands now. So this shows a typical boot up screen for the Commodore 64. So we'll just interrogate the disk, and you did this with basic commands. The operating system was actually very primitive, so we could list what's on the disk here, and we can see our Ghostbusters title there. So we'll just load that in, and as all Commodore 64 users will know, you type a comma 8 at the end to tell the machine to look for this on the disk drive. Now, accessing programs from one of these 1541 drives is notoriously slow, and it really became a feature of the Commodore 64. They were infamous for this particular thing, that it took ages for these programs to load. In fact, as long as it took programs to load off cassette tapes for other home computers. So let's just do this in real time. We'll just wait till this program loads in, and we'll give you an indication of just how long it takes. So still waiting. Maybe a little music will help. Okay, here at last, so let's start our game.
Ghostbusters!
I just had to let you listen to that because that is so iconically, first of all, 1980s and Commodore 64. So here we are into Ghostbusters, where I have to put my name in here and choose some of my equipment as I'm getting a new Ghostbusting franchise. Now I must warn you, I haven't played this game for years and years and years, and this is only going to be a once over run filming it, so I'm not sure what's going to happen. I think I can remember what to do. So first thing I've got to do is purchase my car and some bits and pieces for capturing ghosts. So I should be able to go and choose my vehicle. Yeah, so I'll have one of these, and I'll just select some of these bits and pieces I'll need to capture my ghosts. Energy detectors, image intensifiers, marshmallow sensor. Well, that's for when you're in serious danger, so I won't. I'm not quite that desperate yet, so I won't select that. And I also don't quite have the money for it. So a few other bits and pieces, a few traps, just to stack up the car. And a ghost vacuum is always a handy thing to have on board. Right, so now I seriously have to try and play this game after about 15 years. So we start off in our city. We've got to try and drive our car to where ghosts might be inhabiting buildings or congregating. So off we go in our car. We've got a few other men with us, plus all of our ghost busting equipment. So eventually our car will pull up beside a building. If there are no ghosts there, we simply go away again and see if we can find them. You'll see a few starting to creep in from the edge now. The basic idea here is to catch ghosts. The more ghosts you can catch, the more money you can make, and you can get more expensive equipment. If you don't catch enough ghosts, eventually the city is destroyed because there's simply too much psychic energy there, too many ghosts. The marshmallow man appears, starts to destroy buildings. So it does link in with the movie in that respect too. And of course the music plays all the way through just to add to the atmosphere. So we haven't found any ghosts yet, so hopefully we'll find one at this building. We're going to find one. Yes, there's one there. So the idea is to drop your trap and then position your first man. Push the joystick button, and then you've got to position the second one. Now what I can't figure out is, right, okay, so there's a failed attempt at getting a ghost, and what happens when you fail is you get slimed. So no joy there. So let's go to this other building. Now after a while you start to encounter ghosts along the way, and this is where you can suck them into a trap if you are into your car rather, if you are positioned right. I haven't found anything so far. Right, here's another ghost, so let's have a go with this one. So I put my trap down,
Turn around, push the joystick button. Here's the second man. Push the joystick button. We're trying to catch that ghost between our two beams. Missed him again. Now, so I'm dead. You know, one thing I couldn't figure out, and I can't figure out, is how I move my man backwards, my second man, once I push that joystick button and fix the first man. I can't seem to move him backwards, so if we're a little too close, what seems to happen is that if I try and sort of move him, my second man, to the left, it's actually my first man that moves to the left, and of course the beams cross and they're killed. Right, so there's a ghost that we could have sucked up if we're in the right position. There we go, got one. Well, at least that's a consolation prize. Got two. So as you can probably tell, you're watching an edited video of this game, and I was spectacularly unsuccessful at catching ghosts. I couldn't catch any outside the buildings, and in fact this is what happened. We had lots of marshmallow men destroying all my buildings, so not a very good Ghostbuster. Okay, I thought I'd mix things up a bit in this video and show some more hardware towards the end. And this is another Commodore 64 I've got, and this is the Commodore 64C, which is a later model, and as you can see there, the case has a different design. It looks a lot like the Commodore 128, slightly more angled. Came out a little later, about the mid-80s. Commodore's attempt to modernise the case away from that breadbox. At the same time, they brought out this revised drive, which you can see here. Not quite as large physically, and a little better in componentry. And so there you can see my second C64 all set up. A little more modern, that one. Right, two manuals. And like the games and the software, there were just hundreds and hundreds of books that came out for the Commodore 64. So I'm just going to deal with the main manual that everyone got when they got their Commodore 64. And it was a pretty good one. It showed you how to set the machine up. And it really focused on the features of the machine. So every chapter was about the machine itself, either its graphics capabilities or its sound capabilities. There's a little bit of information there on basic, if you like, but and how to write programs, as you can see there. But you know, many of the chapters focused on how to use sprites, how to program some sound routines, so that people could have fun playing with the machine in a programming sense. So they had little demo programs there. Of course, the basic was very primitive, so the only way you could really access these advanced capabilities was through a series of peeks and poke routines, so not particularly user-friendly, but there you go. Now, just in closing, I want to talk about this incredibly useful device. One of the problems with owning retro computers, particularly if you want to play with them now and again, is that you do need software. Now, there's a lot of software on the internet, triggers to get that software in a form where you can use it on your retro computer. With the Commodore 64, there are a lot of disk images out there, and this device, which is one of these X1541 cables, although they're really interfaces, this is an XA1541 version 2 device, can sit between your disk drive, your 1541 disk drive, and your PC, and copy disk images from your PC directly onto blank disks, so you can use them in the Commodore 64. Really, really useful devices. There are a number of different variants to this interface, so if you're interested, go and have a look on the web. You'll see them all there. Here you can see it being used in my setup. I'm copying a disk image from the PC onto a blank disk in my 1541 drive. So it's enabled me to build up quite a large library of Commodore software that I can have just to use with the original machine. Fantastic little piece of electronics.
Well, thanks for joining me on this look at the Commodore 64. It was a very successful machine and continued to be sold right through the 1980s. Millions of them were sold. And even today, they still have a large following. You could find groups on the net discussing these machines, writing programs for them, writing sound routines for them, using them to produce music, demonstration graphics, really pushing the hardware. People that just love the 8-bit technology that the Commodore 64 affords. So, until next time, keep well, and we'll see you in the next video.